In this lesson, we are going to be finding the center and radius of a circle from the equation they give us, and then graphing it. So you can see in number 4, it's set up perfectly in the equation. We're going to go ahead and grab the h and k out of here. So it says x minus 4, so that means for my center I'm going to use a positive 4, because the formula has a negative in it. Y minus 1, so my center would be a positive 4, 1. And then my radius is always the square root of this number, so my radius is 3. I go ahead and plot that point, 4, 1. I'm going to go up 3, right 3, down 3, left 3. Connect the dots. There's my sketch. So that one's a pretty quick, fast one from what we just talked about. Number 5 is the same way. The only difference is instead of saying x minus or plus something squared, it just has an x squared. So hopefully you'll realize that would be written as x minus 0 squared, because I wouldn't actually need to write it that way. So my center is 0, 3, opposite coming out of here. And then my radius is the square root of 1, which is 1. So I go to 0, 3. I'm going to go up 1, right 1, down 1, left 1, and I've got a nice little pretty itty-bitty circle there. So hopefully from using the formula you guys can figure that out. 6 and 7 are what's a little bit different. You can see that they aren't in the form of quantity squared. So we don't have them in the proper form for us to find the center right now. So what we need to do is actually, same thing we do with parabolas, is we need to complete the square to put them in that form. The fun thing about this is that we don't complete the square once. We actually complete the square twice because we have an x squared and a y squared. So my first step in doing that is I'm going to group my x's together. X squared plus 8x plus blank, because I know I'm going to have to complete the square on that. And then I'm going to group my y's. So plus y squared, that's a minus, right? Minus 6y plus blank. And then we'd say equals 0 plus blank plus blank, because we'd have 2 blanks there on the other side. You might have more room to write yours. I had to put my blanks because I was running into my graph. So to find the blanks, I do each one separately. So my first blank here in red would be b over 2 squared. So 8 divided by 2 squared, which gives me 16. So 16 is in red. To find my green blank, I take my b value of negative 6. So I go negative 6 over 2 squared, which will give me 9. So there's a 9 on both sides. Now I'm going to factor each of these, and it should be the same thing twice because I completed the square, so I can have it in my standard form for a circle. So factors of 16 when added together make 8, would be x plus 4, quantity squared. Factors of 9 when added together make negative 6, would be y minus 3, quantity squared. And those equal 16 plus 9, which is 25. So now I have completed the square to put it in the proper form so I can find the center. So I need to actually find it. I would pull those numbers out and get negative 4, 3 for my center. And my radius is the square root of 25, so 5. So I'm going to plot these points. I go to negative 4, 3. And then I'm going to go up 5, right 5, down 5, and left 5. Connect the dots for my horrible sketch. At least go through the circle a little bit. And there we go. So hopefully that makes sense with completing the square. We'll practice that tomorrow too for your homework. Number 7 then, what you might notice about number 7 is we have an x squared, a y squared, but only one x. And so the other thing that's different about 7 is we actually have a constant that we're going to have to move over. That's normally our first step in completing the square, but for the last problem we didn't have a constant, so that wasn't done. So I'm going to group my x's. X squared plus 4x plus blank. And then I would group my y's, but since I just have a y squared and not another y, that's telling me that the y coordinate's going to be a 0. So I already know my center is going to be something 0. That's really what you should pick up from that. So over here, there's nothing to complete the square on then. I'm going to have 8 plus blank. So to find my blank for the x's, I take b over 2 squared. 4 divided by 2 is 2. 2 squared is 4. So I'm going to put a 4 right here. I go ahead and factor then. X plus 2 quantity squared plus y squared equals 12. So now I'm in my form where I can give the center and the radius. I do see that my y is 0, right? My x value, my h, would be -2. So my center is at -2, 0. And my radius would be the square root of 12, which I would write as 2 root 3. Because if I break down the square root of 12, I'd have root 4 times root 3. So I'm going to say my radius is 2 root 3. And now I'm going to graph this. So I go to -2, 0. How do I go up, right, down, and left 2 root 3? I don't, right? So really what I have to do is I have to find what the square root of 12 is. The square root of 12 is 3.4, I think. Let me punch it in my calculator. Or not. My calculator does not want to work right now. Oh, there we go. Maybe it'll work now. Square root of 12. 3.46. So 3.46, which is really close to 3.5, right? So when you're graphing the square root of 12 or 2 root 3, I know you have to estimate because it's a decimal. So I'm going to go about 3.5 up. About 3.5 to the right. About, it's really Minnesotan about I'm saying. About 3.5 to the left. And then I'm connecting those circles or dots with a really bad circle again. And there is my sketch. So it's okay to have a radius that's a decimal. In real life, that probably would happen more often than not. And there you go.